The typical democracy turns altogether, so sustainable measures that will make more sense for the inhabitants in cities, making life more livable. Globalization is primarily a process where we made people to come out of their comfort zones, move towards the cities because they started seeing the benefits of it. Bangalore was clocking more and more cases when compared to some of the rural districts of Karnataka. The reason was quite obvious. Why? Because the COVID was spreading faster and faster because of the human contact. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Chapter 3, Unit 4, second semester, B.B.A, Sustainable Development, where we are going to speak about sustainability, design and living. We are going to first talk about why sustainable design has to be the most important criteria for the cities today to live in. Why? Because today we are talking about a system, we're talking about a design which need to possess the capacity to accommodate the ever-growing urban cities. Now let's just talk about it in detail. Cities possess massive resources, talent, creativity, hubs of innovation, knowledge sharing and experimentation, no doubt about it. Whether you look at Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Gurgaon or any other city for that matter, these are the hubs where people come to work, where they generate income, where they experiment each and everything. Now, the first time when the city of Kolkata had the metro rail, that is the underground railway transport system, everybody was amazed why it couldn't have been in the city of Delhi or in Mumbai. But then when Kolkata took it in the way back in 85, 86 itself with the underground train system coming up in a big way, the early 90s I would like to talk about, that was one of the turning point I would like to say. Why? Because cities are always the experimental spot for any infrastructure development or for any mass development in terms of healthcare, education, and in terms of employment. So we need to ensure that we are designing cities which are enabling the population to live better, to have a better conditions in terms of growing up. Now, let me just put you a factor here. I'm going to talk about something called facilitating the process of generating new ideas, embedding them locally and scaling up on what works the best. Now, this is very, very important. Why? Because as we are talking about it, as we are trying to implement about it, cities are, however, not able to abstract sustainability machines. They are done with the real people. They are with the people who work, who live there. And it has got a massive population cluster altogether. So we need to redesign the cities in such a way that sustainability is being pronounced more there. Now, going forward, cities are made of people, by the people, and of the people. So, the typical democracy turns altogether. So, sustainable measures that will make more sense for the inhabitants in cities, making life more livable. Now, given a chance, given an opportunity, many people would always like to say, I would like to shift myself to Austria. I would like to go myself to Norway, Denmark, Finland, or probably, cities like Melbourne, or, I would like to even go towards cities like London. Now, these are cities which have been fancied in the minds of people, not just because of the vibrant culture, but because of the factor that they are more livable, they are full of life. That's what the younger generation feels all about. These are cities which have been created with a great purpose, and every arc of the city has got some or the other attraction. So when you go to these kind of cities and explore the living conditions there, you are definitely attracted. You want to be a part of that great system. Now, that is possible only when you make the cities more breathable, more livable, and rather I would like to say that more attractive enough where you can churn the population to do something better. Now, it is not just about the infrastructure which I'm talking about, all those tall skyscrapers that, outline the entire map of the city. But what I'm really talking about is a city which has got a design which is so provocative, which is so interesting by itself that people want to be a part of it. And when, for example, you might have seen in Bollywood movies the shootings that takes place in the city of Copenhagen, which is the capital of Denmark. Now, you might also see cities like Stockholm, which is a part of Sweden, capital. Now, these are cities which have been designed so well that they articulate both the mixture of nature as well as the modern technology. So now what happens here is that people feel that, yes, you are living in a Roman calendar, no doubt about it, but yes, you are still a part of the modern universe. Now, that's exactly what we are talking about, livability, sustainability factors altogether. We want the city to be less cluttered. We want the city to have the flow of traffic in a smooth way. We want the city to be more accessible by everybody. And we also want the city to be safe for the citizens to live. So definitely, sustainability has got a bigger meaning for the cities in India as well as across the globe. Then the next thing is that globalization and urbanization, two big words. Two very big words that we are going to learn today. Why? Because these processes will try to support each other. Globalization causes people to move to cities because of the benefit factors, and what we call it as the amalgamation, the urbanization fosters economic and cultural interdependence of the world. That is, what I typically call as the planetary wide ecological footprint. Now, the globalization part is a very, very old topic that we can talk about in a length. Why? Because globalization is primarily a process where we made people to come out of their comfort zones, move towards the cities because they started seeing the benefits of it. Now, when the people of Maharashtra started leaving their villages and made their destination towards a city called Mumbai, Mumbai became crowded not just because of the inflow of people, but it became the financial hub of India. Mumbai attracted hundreds and thousands of people from different corners of our country because it had the opportunity of making each and every people live with some means of revenue. Now, Mumbai is not just a city for India. Mumbai is not just the capital of Maharashtra. It is a financial hub. It is the city which will define the economic value of our country. It is the city which gives the place, which is the headquarters for many of the corporates. And it is the city where most of the corporate honchos have created their landmark. So this is not just a history, but this is something which keeps repeating by itself. That's exactly where we want to bring in the globalization and urbanization concept, and both of them sync. One side, you are attracting people to come inside. The other side, you are creating an economic value. You are trying to create a new dimension, a new hemisphere where you want to see people that they are able to generate better and better revenue for themselves. So definitely, whenever we are going to see this ecological footprint, whenever we are going to see the mix of people together coming in and going forward, this is definitely going to be interesting for each one of us. Followed by the societal trends and challenges, geographic disparities that we have been talking about. Besides the persistence of social inequalities, which produce a lot of issues of spatial segregation, unequal standards of living, a lack of housing, inabilities and adaptabilities with the cities, large economic inequalities that exist between the larger metropolitan and smaller peripheral and old industrial cities. They live to an uneven quality of life and opportunities that is being spoken about across the world. Now, why we typically talk about this is that now, not all the cities are really great that we talk about. Whenever I talk about India, probably, Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi are visibly known, or probably Gurgaon now adding up as the Millennium City of India. Now, when you add up these cities, yes, these are quite interesting to talk about because of the activities. But nobody would like to talk about Lucknow or Bhopal, or probably, let's talk about Srinagar, or let's talk about a place like Itanagar in Arunachal Pradesh. Now, these are also capital cities. These are also cities defined by the geography. But then these cities do not become interesting for the public to migrate because of the distribution of inequality there. The resources are not equally distributed. You don't find anything interesting as in terms of opportunity or in terms of growth. So what happens in the long run is that people suddenly start feeling that why is that there is a disparity? Why should that disparity start being coming out with a starking difference that you're able to see that? So many times you might find that the quality of life is not that great. Whereas, whenever we go and compare, though Mumbai being a crowded city, but people never complain about the factor that I live in small areas. They like the city because that city is able to generate them some opportunity. But nevertheless, coming back to the geographical dimensions of Mumbai, it's going to be quite difficult because, the space is very less. People are crowded. It's congested. People don't have the opportunity to live. So all those factors are coming into it as in a big way there. And this is definitely going to be challenging for each one of us to understand in the long run. Followed by, now the crisis and pandemics, the outbreak of COVID-19 has contributed to a lot of instability, which we have to understand, which we have to adapt and adjust at any given point of time. Why do I tell this? Most of us would also understand the factor that we have all lived in a clustered city and the cities where the breeding centers for COVID-19. The rate at which the COVID virus, when I'm talking about the COVID factor that spread across, was very high in the cities when compared to that of the rural areas. And it was quite obvious why, because the population is very high. Bangalore was clocking more and more cases when compared to some of the rural districts of Karnataka. The reason was quite obvious. Why? Because the COVID was spreading faster and faster because of the human contact. Now, that is definitely a lesson for us to learn. Why? Because if a pandemic or a crisis is going to break out in future, definitely that is going to create and reverse reaction and reverse activity altogether. So definitely there is some social problem factor that's going to emerge out. Now, digital transitions which are coming, information, communication technologies, which are for the fourth industrial revolution, or probably, the new industrial opportunities that we are talking about, these are more efficiently and holistically done for the well-being of the people, and definitely you will see that the challenges to privacy and democracy are a factor in the cities altogether. So when I say the societal challenges, cities will have more challenges because of the intrusion of people, because of the lack of space that we are living together, and there are factors that where we will be able to see that people come together, they cluster, they join, they create a lot of commotion altogether there. So definitely, the privacy factors and the democracy factors will take a backseat when we are talking about the factors called as your societal trends and challenges. Now, the population aging. Aging produces a specific demand for urban infrastructure, no doubt, health and social care system. Now, when you compare to Bangalore, the living conditions in the city of MYSURU is far better. The reason being that Bangalore is more congested, heavy traffic. The old people are not able to find a peaceful living conditions there. And if you have to rush to the hospital or to any other medical care center, it is not that possible for you to just walk out, take a auto, take a vehicle and just keep moving, because the mobility in the cities are pretty much clustered. They are pretty much congested. You don't have that amount of freedom to just move around. So that means the barricades for living in a city are higher when compared to that of the rural or the semi-urban areas. Second thing is that the climatic and environmental challenges, as most of us know about the global transformation that is happening. Let us just throw a light around on this factor called as climatic transfusions. Most of you would have been heard about the rains and the damages that have been happening around the world because of the climatic changes. Now, because of a heavy rainfall or any other seasonal effects that might be erupting in the due course of time, the effect is directly found on the geographical factors on the city level, which goes on a very high level of damage when compared to that of the rural villages. The reason is that cities are more clogged. They do not give you that open space for drainage. They do not have the open space where they can let out all these factors. So automatically what happens? The road gets blocked, the building collapses, the traffic jam, and this leads to loss of people, lead life, heavy pollution, especially when we are talking about the noise pollution factors. So at the end of the day, this is going to be a serious effect that we are going to talk about in terms of the city building exercise. Followed by the natural technological hazards. Urbanization has decreased the distance between the population. No doubt about it, centers where you would start seeing that, the seashores and other centers are prone to impact of natural hazards. And, the exposure of population is also leading to technological hazards. Now, one of the big challenges that I would like to talk about today is that because of the invention of social media, probably our circle has become very, very limited. It has not expanded. I would like to throw a light on this particular topic. Why? Because social media is trying to connect people, no doubt about it. I'm not against it. But what social media has done is that it has divided us from the general population, from the thought process. Whatever that comes on our mobile is what we believe, is what we see, and it's what we try to understand the world around us. But then there is a bigger world outside that which people don't want to experiment, they don't want to see, rather they don't want to even think about it because that is not under their purview at all. So what is very, very important today is that you see of the technological factors that has been popping up here, the divide among the people is going on a larger scale. One side you are becoming technological friendly, but the other side you are getting completely clogged, completely held up in one point. The other thing is that when we talk about the natural disasters and other factors, the city does not have a composite plan. They don't have a plan B, they don't have a plan C through which they can escape or they can make the population come out. It's completely been logged altogether. So it's very, very important that we understand these factors. Followed by engaging with digital transition, which means technology is increasingly integrated into urban design and management. Cities deploy ICT, that is smart infrastructure, for the solutions to support the integration, coordination of urban system. City operating systems are also being deployed alongside, which is like a digital twin that is used to create an holistic. Why? Because these structures with the robotics are going to take care of the infrastructure in coming years. So we are automating the city, not just for our benefit, but we are automating the city so that round the clock, the city becomes smart enough in terms of understanding the needs of the people, smart enough in terms of making it even more adjustable and, people-centric in the long run. Now, the cities that make life comfortable because they aspire to make more livable city, they want the infrastructure to be flexible, they want the infrastructure to be adaptive. It is something that should make them interesting enough and they are part of an urban life, making the cities even more attractive, even more easier for people to come in and go out. So the fundamental aspect that one has to keep in his mind is that at any given point of time, cities should be made comfortable to live in. Now, it's a neutral climate that we have been talking about many a time. We are planning to create a neutral climate. We are planning to build energy-oriented buildings that can absorb all the carbon negative energy. We don't want these pollution to spread over across. We want energy efficient building. We don't want the carbon footprint to go up. We want to create a greener environment wherever we go, and we want the homes to be even more better. With that, I come to the end of today's class, today's presentation. I hope and believe that all the facts that have been spoken through this presentation would be of a great value to you, both in terms of theory and practical. In the upcoming sessions, we are going to talk about sustainability in different forms and formats. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.